Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm your friendly neighborhood Dungeon Master, and this week we're going to do our third ever Patron Poll Build, the part one. Stick around. So it being the holidays, I wanted to make my latest patron poll something a little bit more related to that fact. So last year, you saw on the channel, my first ever holiday video, one of my earliest videos, I made a homemade Christmas tree, a little light up holiday tree that could serve for the town center or something like that. This year I put a bunch of choices for the poll. That's what a poll is, but I did that and my patrons chose, and they chose the biggest, most annoying build that I had to build. Of course they did, because I put it out there for them to choose it. So I'm man of my word, so I started making it, and the choice that won was Santa's workshop, with a playable interior and the ability to remove the roof and have the inside show up. Making it how I make all my buildings, with some dollar store foam core as the base and some XPS foam for the outside. The previous video that I made on the channel, I was experimenting with some techniques that I saw before, and it didn't quite work out, so I wanted to go back a little bit to some of the earlier ways that I've done stuff and incorporate some newer things that I've learned. And what's come out so far for this first part of this video is pretty awesome. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. So let's just get right to the table and get right to the build so you guys can start seeing this. This is a bit of a long video. I want to warn you, it's probably one of my longer ones, but there was a lot of detail that went into this, and I wanted to include every step along the way, or at least as many steps as would explain the process. I did cut a few out because they were superfluous or they didn't add anything to the video. So if you see something that's happened in the video that I don't narrate or that I don't describe, it's because I've shown it before on another video. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to comment below. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, all that great stuff, and let's get right into the build. Now I wanted to get started on the actual workshop proper, so I want to try to sketch out an overall kind of building plan, something I've never really done before. I usually just kind of wing it when it comes to this stuff, but I'm trying something a little different this time, so I wanted to try to kind of get a layout. It's not going to be a gigantic building. It's Santa's cottage with kind of a small offshoot workshop, and that's kind of what I'm imagining. So kind of 2 rooms, a little bit offset, multi-part roof, that kind of thing. So I'm just going to sketch it out and see what we can come up with this, and then try to translate it from the sketch to physical building. So I'm thinking do the floor plan first, and it would be something kind of like the actual house itself, some kind of a wood stove or something in there, a doorway here that leads into the workshop off to the side. And I figured the buildings can be roughly the same size. The workshop may be a little bit longer. I'm going to include some interior stuff inside there. So now that I have that floor plan laid out, I want to see how the front of the building and the back of the building are going to look. They're going to do, I kind of want to do a sloped roof like this for both of them. Have it kind of be a double peak like that, with the roof in the middle, offset obviously like I mentioned before. I'll have a couple windows, door, and a second door over here for the workshop, and maybe a couple windows, and that's it. That's all I really think it needs. And then we can do trim and flashing and stuff afterwards using some foam. So I think I want to build the core of the building out of dollar store foam core, and then build it up with XPS foam. My previous experiment using the shiftinglands.com method of drawing on the foam here in the States, our foam just isn't cut out for it. It's just not good enough for it. So I'm not going to waste my time with that. This is going to be my sketch, and we're going to go with this and see how things come out in the end. Hopefully we'll have a decent project. So I have my scrap piece of Dollar Tree foam core here, and I've got my sketch to look with, and I'm just gonna kind of eyeball these measurements about how big do I want this building, as the floor plan is, I'm thinking roughly 2 small buildings about yay big. That's about 5 inches by 7 inches, maybe the same size as the other house that I built last week. So I'm gonna make my walls to accommodate that. I'm gonna make I think I'm gonna make a 5 by 6 and a 5 by 7, although that might confuse the measurements. No, I'm gonna make 2 5 by 7s because I think it'll just be easier. So I'm gonna cut 2 7-inch by 2.5 pieces. Sorry, 4. Do I need 4? 1, 2, 3. I'm actually gonna need one that's a little bit longer for that wall. I'm gonna need 2 7-inch pieces, and this one will probably be an 8-inch piece, maybe, yes, because I'm gonna offset it by about 1 inch, 2 inches. Well, that would be a 9-inch piece, but you get the idea. So we got the corner here of my Dollar Tree foam board, and I'm using a square because it makes the measurements come out better, especially since I have an uneven edge here. So now I'm just gonna tick it with my knife to mark where I wanna cut. And that's gonna be, actually I'm going about this the wrong way. I need to rip this down over here. We're gonna do it this way instead. Yes, okay. We've got, my walls are now, instead of 3 inches, I do my walls 2.5 inches high. So that's what I'm gonna mark off there. I'm gonna mark off my walls at 2.5 inches. Come in with my square. Do it this way. Oh, but Dungeon Master, you're not left-handed. Square it up like that. And then cut. 1 piece. Do it again. 2.5. I've already got a mark from the previous mark. It's 2. And then we're gonna do a 1/3. Okay, then the next sections, I'm gonna need 1, 2, 3, 4 sections for the other front pieces, but those have to be taller because they're going to have the gable ends. So I'm gonna make these 5 inches in height, and I'm just gonna cut 1 big strip. No, I'm gonna need 4. I'm gonna need 2 strips. I'm gonna cut these at 5 inches, twice the height of the others. Nice, big, exaggerated roof. I am noticing a little bit of unevenness here, but it's not a big deal. I'm not going to belabor it because these are going to get trimmed afterwards anyway. For these, I need 2 7s and 1 9. We're going to offset it 2 inches instead of 1. For this, I'm just going to take 2 pieces like this, making sure I keep the even edge, whichever one that happens to be. Cut them both at the same time. Okay, there's 2 7s. Now I need a 9. That. Now I need to split these into 5-inch sections. So I'm gonna make sure I've got the right edge here because I think there's something off about this piece. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I don't want it to be too bad. Okay, now let's get over to the desk and cut these a little bit further so we can get space for our windows and stuff like that. Okay, so I want to take a look now at my gable ends, how I want to do these. And to make them more or less accurate, I need to do a little bit of measuring here. This part I want to take a little bit more time with because it might offset the whole roof if I don't get these parts correct. Not to worry, it won't look terrible, but my eye is going to bug the hell out of me if I don't do this part right. So I'm going to measure the halfway point on the top part and on 2 of the sides. And I'm going to make a template. My first piece, my first cutout is going to be a template. And I'll use that to make my other 2 pieces. It makes cutting out the foam core a lot easier when you need to cut out multiple pieces. So I've got those measured. Now I want to get something circular to use to cut my gables. And I think I have over here, let's see if I can find something round. I got a roll of tape that's kind of too small. I got a much larger one here. That might be too exaggerated. That might be too much of a sweep. It needs to be something much larger. I will go find something. And well, the biggest thing that I have in my craft space is one of the cymbals from my drum set. So I'm going to use this to make the curvature on these roof tiles. This is a little ridiculous. If you don't have a cymbal like I do, use a dinner plate. Use something that's a lot bigger and a lot rounder and a little bit less expensive than a cymbal. But this is what I had, so that's what I'm going to use. And that's just about perfect. I probably should have made them a little taller. Now that I'm looking at it, I probably should have made these ends slightly more elongated so that the slope of my circle isn't so steep. And I'm actually thinking now, looking at this, that I really don't like how short and squat this is. So I think I need to make these much taller, somewhere in the area of 7 inches. So I'm gonna have to increase the height of my gable ends. So I'm gonna go cut 2 new pieces, redo the circle, swish on it, and then we'll continue from there. I had a couple of scrap pieces here that are slightly bent. I'm hoping I can straighten them out with a little bit of force. I peeled the paper off them at one point, and just letting them sit, they curled inward. Not too serious. I can probably straighten it out, and it'll probably look even better once I cut the actual front corners out. So let's get our measurements again and try this again. I'm still gonna go up 2.5 inches from the bottom because that's the height of my walls. That's going to be a little better, I think. So now what I'll do is I'll cut this out. First of all, I'm going to get a fresh blade because this one's not. There you have it, folks. That's going to be the main outline of the building. Nice pointy roof. Nice simple design. And I'm just going to keep repeating the pattern on the whole thing now using the main template. And there we go. there we have it. That's all 4 of our gable ends. Now I want to go back to my template piece. They all look more or less exactly the same, which is awesome. Grab my template piece and cut out a window. Actually, no, I think I'm gonna end up gluing on box windows on top instead of doing the recessed windows. I'll do recessed windows on the bottom. So I think on these, I'm gonna carve doors in because this foam does take a pencil scribing. So I got my door template around here somewhere. This it's just a 1-inch paint stirrer that I drew door on, and I measured the height of my doors how I like them, which is usually around 2.5 inches or 1.5 inches, excuse me. It's 1.5 inches tall. I'm just gonna eyeball it right here in the middle. This will be the door for the front. Trace this around, right? Don't do that. Okay, and that will be my door. I'll actually draw a door on here. I think that will work fine for this building. I don't need to have an opening door or anything like that. Nice deep cut with the pencil. You can see it really well, so the lines will be nice. And then I've got my window template, which I used on the previous build. If I can find that, I must have buried it somewhere. And I've got my little window template. And that I'm going to do the same thing with. Just eyeballing this whole thing, it makes it way easier. Okay, and now those will get cut out. And you notice I'm going over slightly. I'm not worried about that because I'm gonna end up framing these windows with like popsicle stirrer sticks or coffee stir sticks, excuse me. So I'm not gonna worry too much about that. The cool thing about using a pencil is you can make it dull or you can make it sharp just using your hobby knife, which I really like. Okay, that's one side of the house. Now how I have my sketch is I have one of the doors, especially the door for the workshop, offset. So there's gonna be one window, one door. Okay, now I'm gonna start gluing everything together, and I think I can just do this part with hot glue. I don't have to worry about it because I'm gonna cover all of the gaps. I'm gonna cover all of the linings with flashing and stuff, so I don't have to worry about hot glue leaking out. I just gotta make sure I, wipe it off with my fingers before it sets if there's any dribble. So I'm gonna get that set up and start to assembling.
So I'm going to speed things up here for you guys just a little bit so you can see the entire process. I'm just gluing things together haphazardly, sticking them together as straight as I can, and making sure that everything is square before I finalize the position. Next, I'm going to make some cross beams for the top so that the roof has something to lay against when I put the base panel for the roofing on. I just took some strips of dollar store foam core and cut them to the approximate length of the building, which I believe was 7 inches, and placed it in between the two top pieces and hot glued it in place. And next I took my craft knife and came in and beveled each of the edges. These didn't have to be perfect. Didn't want to have them be perfect anyway. It doesn't matter. The roof portions are going to lay perfectly flat against them and hide them after I put the shingles on. Now, I didn't have any cardstock laying around, or chipboard laying around, excuse me, but I did have the back of an old sketch pad that I used to have. So I took some pieces of that I had laying around and some pieces of mat board to use for the roof panels. And I gave them a little bend before I put them on, and then just hot glued them in place. I made sure to leave overlaps on the ends of the building and over the side so that there could be a little bit of place to glue the shingles to keep them from snapping off afterwards. I always forget to do this when I'm making stuff, but I wanted to texture the foam core. Since I had peeled the paper off, I wanted to make a stucco pattern, or a stucco texture, excuse me. So I just used rolled up tinfoil ball on the side of it, kind of just dabbing it lightly and giving it a little bit of roll to get the stucco pattern, which worked really well. And then for the last step on this particular part of the build, I just capped the top using some black construction paper. And thinking about it now, this is all going to be covered anyway, so this step was really unnecessary, but I went ahead and did it anyway. And then I just attached that to the top using some white PVA glue. And as the glue was setting up, I came in with my hobby knife and trimmed off the excess.
Okay, so what I want to try to do now is make window boxes for the front and the back side. So I need to make 4 of them. So I just want to take some quick measurements to try and figure out how big I want them to be. And I'm going to use my window template that I used earlier for the smaller windows to make the windows for the window boxes above. So I need to think about how big the actual window box needs to be. So I'm going to take a measurement of the maximum width. I think I want to have them somewhere in this top area up here, which means the maximum width of a window box in this area can be 1 1/4 inches. So 1 1/4 inches is my maximum width. This window is 3/4 of an inch by 1 1/8 inches. So I'm going and making it 1 1/4. It will have a significant amount of space. I'm going to use some scrap pieces of foam board here. Try to make some room with this thing on. The table is a little difficult. Cut 1 1/4 inches. And then just eyeballing this mostly. I mean, I'm cutting 1 1/4 inches, but I'm not worried too much about accuracy. I feel like this workshop should be a little bit ramshackle. Maybe nothing too crooked, but definitely not straight. And then I'll go back and do what I usually do and use my masterpiece as a template. And I can save the master template and then cut more if I need. So now I need to figure out how tall I need the windows to be. So I'm gonna say however big this is right here. I'm just gonna make sure there's like a 1/4 inch border around the whole window and use that as my guide. Cutting it freehand. Now I'll make 4 of these, and those are the fronts of my window boxes. And now I'll trace out my windows. And I'm going to leave the paper on this time because these pieces are smaller. I don't want the foam to get trashed just yet. Okay, now I need to determine about how far out I want these windows to go. Maybe only yay far from the wall. 3/4 of an inch sounds good. It's the width of the actual window. And then I have this piece here, which I'll make 1 inch. And you'll see why shortly. So now I need to take my window template here and cut the length of it. And each window is going to need 2 of these, so I'm going to need 8 of these pieces. Now each window is going to need a piece that is 3/4 of an inch wide by the width of the window, and that will be the bottoms of the window. Okay, now there's that. Now I want to do 4 pieces that are 3/4 of an inch by 1 inch, and those, no, 1 inch not 3/4 of an inch, 1 inch by the width of the window. And those will be the angled portions that I will then shingle afterwards. And for some reason I always forget that my ruler is exactly 1 inch wide, and then I can just do that and rip down 1 inch without having to measure. Now I'm going to cut out my windows. I'm going to use a straight edge this time. I can remember where I put it. Trying not to cut all the way through and not really succeeding, but still have to go around to the back and finish the cuts. I'm just going to do them by hand because the straight edge is not helping me. Because I actually want to show you guys something real quick. I want to miter these edges, and I have these side edges here. I want to recess a piece into itself. So what I've learned is that most foam core is 3/16 of an inch thick. Exactly 3/16 of an inch thick. So if you measure 3/16 of an inch across, and then you score it, and you come along the side and you cut between the paper and the foam, and you cut out that piece, when you glue it together, it'll be almost perfectly flush, and then you can trim up any paper that's left over after. And then you can glue it together. Now you can see, although there's a little bit of hot glue on the front because I'm sloppy, there's no seam. It's just paper all the way across. And I have a couple of scrap pieces here that were 3/4 of an inch wide by about 1/4 of an inch that I'm using for these angled sections. Okay, now that I've done that, when I make one of these pieces, I have to glue the windows in before I glue it to the building. So I'm going to forego doing the resin on these this time. I'm just going to take a quick measurement of the size that I need. And we got 1 3/8 inches for the height that I need. A little too long. Have to cut it down just slightly. There we have one window box, which I will then glue to the front of my building. I just need to make 3 more of those. Okay, now since these are going to get glued to the face of the building, I want to make sure that you don't see any white through them. So what I want to do, I have some of my black construction paper here. So I'm going to patch up the back portion of these.
I don't know if this step was really necessary. I could have blacked out the inside of the building using some black Mod Podge, but now that I think about it in post-production, that step is unnecessary now that I know how to do this. I don't even ever have to really paint the inside of a building again. Even if I wanted to do some kind of gloss or reflective type of window, I could put that paper behind the gloss window.
So I'm just here at my Proxon, and I'm just ripping down some planks to use for the fascia of the building. Just cut down some pieces of XPS foam, about 1/4 inch in width. It's about my preferred size for planks. You can go thicker if you want. And then just cutting them a couple of 1/16 of an inch thin. Cutting slices off of these 1/4 inch pieces. And then when I get towards the end, I'm saving the 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch piece to use for beams if I need them later on. And I just cut a bunch of these. I'm not going to use all of these for the project, but I got a pretty good stack of wood planks here, and then I'm just going to use a wire brush to texture them. Okay, so I'm just going to take the wire brush to each one of these planks. To get some wood texture on them. I'm going to measure out some pieces here and glue them right to the face of the building and just start laying planks out.
There was no rhyme or reason for the way that I put these boards on the side of the building. In fact, they probably don't even look like an authentic building would look. It's just a close approximation. I just laid them out in a pattern that I thought looked cool, and then trimmed them to fit. Made it consistent going around the building. I didn't do it different on all sides. I tried to make each side the same. And in the process, what I ended up with was a pretty consistent looking piece. These side windows were probably the trickiest part to do because they had a lot of little cuts and a lot of little pieces that went on them. And these angle cuts were pretty tricky as well, as long as I cut them to the right length and trimmed the excess off while laying them on the side of the building. I didn't have to worry about messing up the angle. I think one of the toughest parts about this project was getting the damn building to stand up straight while I was working on it. It kept wanting to fall over and tip on me, and I had to keep balancing it precariously on things to get it to stand up. Because it was so offset, it didn't have a solid flat surface to lay on, and because it was made of such light materials, with the top having the heavier materials on it, it kept wanting to fall over onto the roof. Every once in a while, I like to experiment with things that I see on other channels, and honestly, it happens a little bit more than every once in a while, but I saw the terrain tutor do something similar to this. I wanted to try to make a jig for cutting out foam tiles, and I kind of, there's two methods. You make them messing or you can make them straight. Messy's fine, but for this project, I kind of wanted them to be a little straighter, and I wanted to try this jig for cutting them. So he makes his shingles out of cardstock. Here I have a piece of, or chipboard, excuse me. Here I have a piece of mat board that I had purchased. Where I buy my supplies from, the mat board is actually cheaper than chipboard, especially for the size and quantity that I need. It's easier to buy a large sheet of mat board than it is to buy chipboard. You can cut whatever size you want out of it. But this is 3/4 of an inch thick by 8 1/4 inches. That's just how it happens to be, is 8 1/4 inches. And I cut lines at 1/4 and 1/2 of an inch with my X-Acto knife, and I cut them kind of wide. And then I got rid of the scruff by running a nail file in between.
until I had the width of basically the nail file, so that I had room for my wire to pass and to make up for the kerf. And then I came and I trimmed the corners just using my snips to snap off the ends. So we're going to experiment with it and see how it comes out. I got roughly a 2-inch piece here, and I'm just going to lay my template on top like so, and freehand using the template as a guide. Now I don't know how this is going to come out. It might be a complete disaster, but brave on experimentation and all that. So let's see what we can do here. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so you guys can get a better look. I want to make sure I have decent heat too. I want to turn it up to like 4. I got my Proxon on 4 for this. Oh, and my wire's loose, so I have to tighten my wire first. So far it's cutting pretty well, but I think I might have my heat too high, so if this doesn't work out, I'm going to try another piece with the heat turned down slightly. But I'm just going to go for it for now. I'm just tracing the pattern, and I'm trying to keep the piece flat on the Proxon table. Oh yeah, I think I have this thing turned up way too high. I think a 4 is too high. 3 or 2 might have been better, and then I could go a little slower. Yeah, not too shabby. It's a little rough. I'm going to try it again with the heat down, but I think that might work. I don't necessarily care for them to be perfect. I did kind of want them to look a little nicer for this, but I might settle for it. Okay, let's try with the pattern again. Now with a slightly smaller piece, and I'm going to turn it down to like 2.5 for this. I'm going to go a lot lower and slower. I'm going to turn it down even lower than that. This appears to be doing much the same thing. I'm a lot happier with that. Let's get a little bit closer. Very good. Much happier with that pattern, although I think this is going to be fine too, to be honest with you. I think I can use both of those. So I'm just going to rip down a couple more of this, and then we'll start making the shingles. That's honestly pretty damn good. I don't think I can get much better than that. Look how well that cut out. Very pleased with that. Wow, that worked out really well. If these shingles come out as good as I hope they're going to, I think we're in business. I think I will have just made myself another homemade tool. All right, I got a couple more. All right, so now I have the shingles. I want to try to texture the foam before, that piece stuck in here. I want to try to texture the foam before actually slicing the shingles. Now this is a technique that you've seen on Black Magic Crafts channel. It's nothing new. I think it's a great technique for texturing these shingles. Just using your wire brush if you have one, or a pencil if you want to be that tedious with it. But just making sure there's no slivers left behind in the crevices of these shingles in the in-between. So I've got here all my cutouts. I've got my wire brush, and I'm going to pick a side to do. And I think this one's got a little bit of damage to it, so I'm going to work from this end. And I'm going to texture
each layer with the wire brush. I just did this same thing on my previous build video where I was experimenting with the house. It's one, so I'm going to take a slice. I'm going to make it really thin, like paper thin. As thin as I can get it. Just like that, we've got a row of shingles. You can see the texture on them. And I just need to make, I don't know, several more. I don't know exactly how many I need to make. I'm just gonna make a big pile of them, and if I need more, I'll come over and make more. Wish me luck. One of the things to be careful of when doing this is when you're using the wire brush, it kicks up a lot of dust particles from the foam, and that pink dust, I actually ended up inhaling quite a bit of it the night that I did these, and ended up coughing up pink dust and tasting the foam in my mouth. It was not okay. So in the future, and actually later on in the project, I ended up wearing my respirator mask when doing this. So I very much recommend using that while you're using the wire brush, kicking up the particles of pink foam. And then just going layer by layer, laying out each individual section of tile. I used white PVA glue and a paintbrush to spread the glue around and laid them on layer by layer. Each roof section took 13 rows of shingles, if that helps. It definitely was very monotonous to cut all of the pieces out because I needed 52 individual strips to cover the roof and a couple of extra just in case I broke, and I ended up breaking a couple of them. These were the tricky parts here. The bottom of the roof, I had to cut sections of the shingles apart in order to make them consistent going all the way around. And it looks great afterwards. You can't even hardly tell that that was something that was done. It was a little bit tricky, but it was worth it in the end to put that level of detail into it, because now the roof actually looks consistent, looks very realistic in my opinion. And next I repeated some of the same steps that I took for making my larger shingles and made some smaller ones to put on the small window, the picture window boxes. And I just did these freehand. I didn't bother trying to make them too perfect. I didn't make a template for them. I probably will in the future to make different kind of sizes for templates for these, but I didn't really bother with this. I was only putting them on a small amount. I didn't feel the need to come up with something like that. And then I just repeated the same process of using the wire brush and cutting thin slices. Next, I needed to cap my the seam in the roof, and I just decided to do this with some small 2x2 centimeter, very thin slices of XPS. And my white PVA glue wasn't strong enough to hold them in place long enough for them to set up, so I just used my hot glue gun to attach these, and there's no detectable glue leakage anywhere on the piece for that section, so it's really not a big deal to go in and use that and mix these two different types of adhesives to get things to fit. And here on the doors, you can see I got these little pieces of flashing that I made, just a couple more pieces of thin XPS foam to add some other detail to the door. I'll come in later and add a little bit more after I've done the base coat. And one of the last details that I wanted to add to the roof was two chimneys, one for each side of the house. So I just did this using another 2x2 section of XPS foam, cut to about 2.5 inches, 3 inches long, and beveled to fit the side of the curvature of the roof so that it would nest on the roof perfectly. And then I'm just coming in with my hobby knife to cut some lines freehand. I didn't really measure any of this or anything. I just did it all eyeball to preliminarily cut some lines into the foam so that when I come back with a pencil after, it really gouges out those lines and makes them like chisel sharp so that it looks like stone. And it's a really effective way of getting a very nice stone texture on XPS foam. I've just got my little bead box that has little odds and ends in it, and I'm just getting out some cylindrical beads that I'm going to use for chimney decoration. And you can see the texture on the stone. I also rolled tinfoil on the stone to give it that stone texture. And now what shall hitherto be known as the step. This is where we take some black Mod Podge and coat the hell out of the entire thing as a base coat and protectant, which will also serve as our primer for coming in with the paint later on. I like to work from a small bathroom cup using my Mod Podge rather than the big jar. I tend to get my brushes way too messy when I stick them down inside the jar to get the last little bit of paint. It's a lot easier to work with when you pour the paint into a separate cup, and then you can pour the excess back into the jar when you're done, so that you don't waste any as well. And this is as far as we're going to be able to get this week. This took a lot of work. This was probably one of the bigger, more detailed builds that I've done, and I'm still not done. There's still several more pieces that I want to add to this. So hopefully next week we will have the rest of it be able to be finished and showcased on the channel. You can really see that stucco pattern sticking through, and it was really worthwhile to texture that dollar store foam core before putting on the flashing.
As you can see, this thing is mighty large. It took a while to put it together. I'm talking like I've been on an every other week posting schedule with work and everything, and I finally had some time to work on this. It still took me a week and a half to build it to get this far. So we're gonna hold off painting it and building the inside until next time, which I hope to have out in about a week or so. So if you like this video and other videos like it and you wanna see more of this kind of content, please hit the like button, hit subscribe below, leave some comments. Let me know what you guys would have done differently, if anything. Any tips, any pointers, anything like that can help me improve on my craft or improve on my channel. I would appreciate it. It's always great to get comments from people pertaining to what I'm doing here. And if you like to help out the channel, one of the things that enables me to be able to make content like this is that I run a small Patreon page over on patreon.com/TheDungeonMattster. You know, have everything, access to everything from monthly polls to behind the scenes stuff, and you know, interacting with me on a more personal basis. I'm able to answer more questions and stuff like that. There's not many patrons right now. I would like to build that base, and more so just for the community aspect of it. I do a pay what you can model. I have only one tier, and it's just more of a level of support more than it is about setting up specific tiers and making a specific income off of this right now. Maybe sometime in the future that will change, but for the time being, you pay what you want, $1 or more a month, and you get access to all of that stuff. So I wanted to wish everybody a happy holiday. I know this video came out a little bit later than I promised it would, but I'm still trying to get it out to you. So just know that I am working on stuff, and I do hope to get it out to you as soon as possible. So I want to wish everybody a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, all of that. Have a happy new year, and if I don't see you guys before the new year, happy 2020. Take care, everybody. I've been your friendly neighborhood Dungeon Mattster. Peace.